You are on HOA debrief. I stayed calm and let her talk. I was halfway through clearing the walkway when Karen yelled that my walkway was unsafe and the fine was already being processed. I am not arguing. I am enforcing. That was Susan Roberts, vendor coordinator for Redwood Heights HOA Incorporated, standing at the curb with a laminated policy sheet in one hand and her phone aimed at me in the other. Snow was still coming down. My shovel was dripping slush. I had been out here 20 minutes, clearing the path from my front door to the street, and she was already documenting a violation. I live in Portland, Oregon, in a neighborhood where the board uses vendors as muscle and pretends it is policy. I work as a restaurant supply rep, which means I drive a branded van and keep inventory samples at home. I have a home-based business license. Susan has been trying to get it revoked for 3 months. She took 3 steps closer and waved the laminated sheet like a flag. Your sidewalk is a hazard. You did not salt. You did not clear to the edges. I can fine you daily until the snow melts and you cry. I looked at the walkway. I had cleared it. I had salted it. The edges were clean. There was a salt spreader handle visible beside the curb where I had left it 10 minutes ago. I pointed at the spreader. I salted. She ignored it. She aimed her phone lower, filming my boots, the shovel, the van parked in the driveway behind me. She zoomed in on the ski rack bolted to the roof. That rack blocks the sidewalk when you park on the street. Another violation. I had not parked on the street in 2 weeks. The van was in my driveway. The ski rack was empty and bolted flat. She did not care. I kept my voice level. The van is in my driveway. The rack is not blocking anything. She lowered the phone and smiled. It does not matter. I already filed the report. The sticker goes on your windshield tonight. If you move the van, I will call the tow company. If you do not move it, I will call the tow company. Either way, you are getting towed. I heard the engine before I saw it. A flatbed tow truck turned the corner, moving slow through the slush. Susan waved at the driver like she was directing a plane into a gate. The truck stopped at the end of my driveway. The driver stayed in the cab. Susan walked over and tapped on the window. She pointed back at my van, then at me, then made a pulling gesture with both hands. The plow contractor only has 1 service window, and missing it means I am buried until morning. That was the text I had gotten from the management company an hour ago. If my driveway was blocked, I could not get out. If I could not get out, I missed my morning deliveries. If I missed deliveries, I lost accounts. Susan knew all of this. That was the point. I pulled out my phone and opened the photos I had taken before I started shoveling. Timestamps, GPS tags, clear shots of the walkway before and after. I had been documenting every snow event since December, because Susan had already tried this twice. I walked over to the truck. The driver rolled down the window. I showed him the photos. I cleared the walk. I salted. She is lying. He looked at the screen, then at Susan, then back at me. He shrugged. I just go where she tells me. If you have a problem, take it up with the HOA. Susan leaned in. He is towing the van. It is already decided. The hook is going on in 2 minutes. I stepped back and called the management company. It rang 4 times, then went to voicemail. I tried the emergency line. Same result. Susan had timed this perfectly. It was 7 in the morning on a Saturday. No one was answering. The driver climbed out of the cab and walked to the back of the truck. He started unspooling the cable. Susan stood beside him, pointing at my van, adjusting his angle like she was directing a photo shoot. I did not argue, because I already had something in my pocket she did not know about. Board meeting minutes and a quorum log that proved the vote was invalid. The HOA had amended the winter enforcement policy in November, but the vote had been taken without a quorum. 3 board members had been on the call. The bylaws required 5. I had pulled the minutes from the portal 2 weeks ago, printed them, and kept a copy in my jacket. I also had the vendor contract Susan had signed with this tow company. It was supposed to be for emergency removals only, not for harassment. If you are enjoying this chaos, hit the like button and subscribe for more stories where the HOA gets exactly what they deserve. I walked back to the walkway, pulled the folded documents out of my inner pocket, and held them up so Susan could see. I did not say anything. I just held them. She glanced over, squinted, then looked away. She did not recognize them yet. The driver was attaching the hook when a voice called out from across the street. "Hey." "Hold on." A couple on the porch of the house directly opposite mine were standing at the railing, watching like it was a show. The man, older, gray beard, puffy coat, leaned forward. "That van has not moved in 2 weeks. I see him clear the walk every morning. What are you towing him for?" Susan turned and pointed at him. "This does not concern you." The man pulled out his phone. "I am recording this. You are towing a vehicle that is legally parked in a private driveway. That is theft." Susan kept calling different tow drivers like she was speed dialing chaos. I found this out later. She had 3 companies on rotation, and if one refused the job, she moved to the next. This driver was her 3rd choice. The first 2 had already told her no after I filed complaints with their dispatch offices. The driver looked at the couple, then at Susan, then at me. He dropped the hook. "I am not doing this. If there is a dispute, you sort it out. I am not taking the liability." Susan turned red. "You are under contract. You do what I tell you." The driver climbed back into the cab. "No, I am under contract with the HOA for emergency tows. This is not an emergency. This is harassment. I am leaving." The truck pulled away. Susan stood in the street, staring after it, her mouth half open. She turned to me. "This is not over. I will get another truck here before noon. You will not get away with this." I unfolded the documents and held them out. These are the board meeting minutes from November. The winter policy vote did not have a quorum. It is invalid. Every fine you have issued under that policy is void. Every tow you have authorized is illegal. I am filing a complaint with the management company, and I am sending a copy to the board attorney. She grabbed at the papers. I pulled them back. She lunged again. I stepped sideways. She missed and slipped on a patch of ice, catching herself on the orange cones. She did not fall, but she stumbled, and the cones clattered to the ground. The couple across the street laughed. Someone shouted from another house. Got that on video too. Susan straightened, picked up the cones and shoved them under her arm. She pointed the laminated policy sheet at me again. "You think you are smart. You think you can just ignore the rules. I do not negotiate with winter violations. You are going to lose your business license. I am going to make sure of it." She turned and walked to her car, which was parked 2 houses down. She got in, slammed the door, and sat there. She did not leave. She just sat there, engine running, watching my driveway. I went inside, scanned the documents, and emailed them to the management company, the board president, and the HOA attorney. I attached photos of the walkway, the salt spreader, the timestamps, and a screenshot of the tow truck leaving. I copied the couple across the street on the email and asked them to send their video. An hour later, my phone rang. It was the board president, a man named Greg who had been dodging my calls for weeks. He sounded tired. "We need to talk. Can you come to an emergency meeting tomorrow?" I said yes. I asked if Susan would be there. He said no. I asked if the attorney would be there. He said yes. I hung up. That afternoon, Susan came back. She had a vendor with her this time, a man in a reflective vest carrying a clipboard and a tape measure. They stood at the edge of my property and measured the distance from my walkway to the curb. They measured the width of the cleared path. They measured the depth of the snow on either side. The vendor took photos. Susan pointed at things and talked. The vendor nodded. I watched from the window. I did not go out. I filmed them through the glass. When they left, I pulled the county code enforcement manual and cross-referenced every measurement they had taken. Everything was in compliance. I emailed the results to the attorney with another set of photos. The next morning, I got a notice taped to my front door. Violation of winter safety standards. Fine of $500. Compliance required within 24 hours or additional fines will be assessed daily. It was signed by Susan and dated the day before. I drove to the emergency board meeting. It was held at a coffee shop 3 miles away because the community center was closed for snow. Greg was there along with 2 other board members and the attorney, a woman in her 50s with a leather portfolio. Susan was not there, but I could see her car in the parking lot. Greg started talking before I even sat down. We reviewed your complaint. We reviewed the minutes. You are right. The vote was invalid. We are voiding the winter policy amendments and reverting to the original standards. We are also voiding all fines issued under the amended policy. The attorney opened her portfolio and slid a single-page letter across the table. This is a formal retraction and refund notice. All fines will be refunded within 10 business days. The tow authorizations have been revoked. We are also terminating our vendor coordination contract with Susan Roberts, effective immediately. I picked up the letter and read it. It was clean. It was formal. It was exactly what I needed. I asked if Susan knew. The attorney nodded. She was notified this morning. She is contesting the termination, but it will not change the outcome. The contract allows us to terminate for cause, and authorizing an illegal tow qualifies. I asked about my business license. Greg leaned back. Susan filed a complaint with the city claiming you were operating a commercial warehouse out of your home. We did not forward it. The city reviewed it independently and dismissed it. Your license is fine. I asked if she would be removed from the board. Greg shook his head. She is not on the board. She is a vendor coordinator. She reports to the board, but she is not a member. We are ending her contract. That is all we can do. I left the meeting and drove home. Susan's car was gone from the parking lot. When I got back to my house, there was a sticker on my van windshield. It was bright orange. It said unauthorized parking, tow pending, with a phone number and a date. The date was 2 days ago. I peeled it off and photographed it. I called the tow company number on the sticker. The dispatcher told me the authorization had been revoked and the sticker should not have been placed. I asked who placed it. She said she could not disclose that, but she confirmed it was not one of their drivers. That night, I got a call from the contractor who does snow removal for the HOA. He asked if I had seen Susan around the shared mailbox cluster. I said no. He said she had been there an hour ago, pouring water on the pavement and photographing it. He had driven past and stopped to ask what she was doing. She told him she was documenting black ice. He told her the water she was pouring was creating black ice. She told him to mind his own business. He sent me the video. It was clear. Susan with a gallon jug, pouring water in a wide arc, then stepping back and taking photos with her phone. The timestamp matched the time I was at the board meeting. I forwarded the video to the attorney with a note. Susan is manufacturing evidence. The attorney replied within an hour. We are aware. We have been notified by multiple residents. We are filing a complaint with the county and requesting an audit of all winter enforcement actions taken under her coordination. 2 days later, I had to make a heat supply run to a gas station across town. One of my restaurant accounts needed a propane exchange for their patio heaters, and I had promised same-day delivery. I loaded the tanks into the van and headed out. Susan followed me. I saw her car 3 vehicles back when I got on the highway. She stayed there for 6 miles. When I exited, she exited. When I pulled into the gas station, she pulled in behind me. She got out and started filming. She walked around the van filming the tanks, the van signage, the license plate. She filmed me unloading the tanks and carrying them to the propane exchange cage. She filmed me talking to the attendant. I finished the exchange and walked back to the van. She followed me, still filming. I loaded the new tanks. She filmed that. I closed the rear doors. She filmed that. I got in the driver's seat and checked my dash cam. It had been recording the entire time. I pulled up the timestamp and compared it to the photos on my phone. Her timeline did not match. She had been claiming I was making unapproved commercial stops during restricted hours. My dash cam showed I was at the gas station at 2 in the afternoon on a Saturday. There were no restricted hours. I pulled out my phone, opened the dash cam app and held it up so she could see the screen. She stopped filming. She stared at the phone. She lowered her phone. She got in her car and left. I sent the dashcam footage to the attorney with a subject line, "Susan Roberts is stalking me and fabricating commercial violations." The attorney called me 10 minutes later. "Stop engaging. Do not confront her. Do not respond to her. Document everything and send it to me. We are filing for an injunction." A week later, I got a summons. Susan had filed a harassment complaint against me, claiming I had been following her, filming her, and threatening her. The complaint included screenshots of my emails to the HOA, my photos of the walkway, and a statement claiming I had confronted her at the gas station. I called the attorney. She had already seen it. She told me not to worry. She told me she had filed a counter-complaint with evidence of Susan's manufactured violations, her illegal tow authorizations, her stalking, and her water-pouring incident. She told me there would be a hearing in 2 weeks. The hearing was held at the county courthouse. Susan showed up with her own attorney, a man in a cheap suit who spent most of the hearing shuffling papers. I showed up with the HOA attorney and a 3-inch binder of documentation. The judge was a woman in her 60s who looked like she had heard this exact case 100 times before. She asked Susan to present her evidence. Susan's attorney stood up and started reading from the complaint. The judge cut him off after 2 minutes. "Do you have any physical evidence? Photos? Videos? Witnesses?" The attorney shuffled papers. "We have the complainant's testimony." The judge turned to me. "Do you have evidence?" The HOA attorney stood up and handed the binder to the bailiff. The bailiff walked it to the judge. The judge opened it and started flipping pages. She read for 5 minutes without saying anything. Then she closed the binder and looked at Susan. The judge spoke slowly. "Miss Roberts, you filed a harassment complaint against this man. According to the evidence submitted by the Homeowners Association, you have been stalking him, manufacturing evidence, filing false reports, authorizing illegal tows, and abusing your position as a vendor coordinator. You have also been placing stickers on his vehicle after your authorization was revoked. Is any of that incorrect?" Susan's attorney started to stand. The judge held up her hand. "I am asking Miss Roberts." Susan did not answer. She stared at the table. The judge closed the binder and set it aside. "I am granting an injunction that stops all towing and winter enforcement immediately and orders the HOA to void the lien threats. I am also ordering Miss Roberts to cease all contact with the complainant and to stay at least 100 yards away from his property. If she violates this order, she will be held in contempt." Case closed. Susan left the courtroom without looking at me. Her attorney followed her out. The HOA attorney shook my hand and told me the board would be meeting the following week to discuss a full audit of the compliance process. The audit happened 3 weeks later. An independent compliance firm reviewed every enforcement action Susan had coordinated over the past year. They found 47 violations that had been improperly filed, including 12 that were based on manufactured evidence. They found 19 tow authorizations that did not meet the emergency criteria in the vendor contract. They found 8 fines that had been assessed without proper notice. The HOA compliance process is audited and cleaned up. The board voted to implement a new oversight system that requires 2 board members to approve any enforcement action before it is filed. They also voted to require all vendor coordinators to submit monthly reports documenting every enforcement action with supporting evidence. Susan gets corrected by the HOA attorney in plain language. The attorney sent her a letter detailing every violation of her contract, every breach of fiduciary duty, and every instance of fraud. The letter ended with a demand for restitution of all fines collected under false pretenses and a permanent ban from serving in any HOA capacity in the state of Oregon. Susan tried to appeal. She claimed the audit was biased. She claimed I had manipulated the evidence. She claimed the board was retaliating against her for doing her job. Nobody complained, she said at the appeal hearing. The attorney opened a folder and pulled out a stack of documents. These are complaints filed by residents over the past 6 months. 23 in total. All related to your enforcement actions. All claiming harassment, improper procedure, or manufactured evidence. You are correct that nobody complained. They complained 23 times. Susan left the hearing. She did not return. A month later, I got a check in the mail. It was a refund of every fine I had been assessed under the invalid winter policy, plus interest. The check was signed by the management company and included a formal apology letter from the board. I also got a lawyer letter that forces a retraction and a refund. The letter was addressed to Susan. It detailed the injunction, the audit results, and the restitution demand. It gave her 30 days to comply or face a civil lawsuit. She paid. The contractor who refused to be bullied became an ally. He started attending board meetings and advocating for clearer vendor contracts. He also started a neighborhood group chat where residents could report enforcement issues directly to the board. The chat has 80 members now. Susan is not one of them. I still live in the same house. I still drive the same van. I still have the same home-based business license. The ski rack is still on the roof. The salt spreader handle is still beside the curb. The walkway is still cleared every morning. The board replaced Susan with a new vendor coordinator, a retired city planner who follows the rules and answers emails. The compliance process works now. Violations are documented. Notices are sent. Fines are assessed only after proper review. Nobody gets towed without cause. I hope your HOA stays reasonable.